Hello!
Hello!
Hello everybody, thanks for joining us on Mr. A Builder's channel. If you're a regular subscriber, thank you very much. Stay tuned, be patient with us. We're waiting for glass on our jobs. We've come to a bit of a standstill at the moment. It's all happening next week apparently, so very soon they're going to be made watertight and then we can go in, make more progress, make more videos, and then they'll be out for your viewing pleasure. So bear with us on that. While there's been a bit of a lull on these jobs, I have come back to do some work on my house. This is my loft. The electricians have been here today, first fixing it for me. And I have decided to tackle the problem of not so much noisy neighbours, but being able to hear the neighbours when they're just living their life next door. This is a terrace house, so maybe some of you are familiar with the problem that you can basically hear everything. They may as well be in the same room as you sometimes. So I've got that issue and I'm going to try and get over it as cheap as possible. There are loads of things on the market to make walls soundproof, but they're expensive. They're very expensive. Not that I really want to go to the specifications of recording studios or anything like that, but I do want to do something. I've done a bit of research, and by research I mean YouTube videos similar to the one that you're watching now. And I've worked out, well I say I've worked out, I've been shown basically how noise travels through walls and how you can counteract it. And I've sort of come up with a bit of my own method. Not that it's complete rocket science, but my own method as to stop it from happening. So I'm more or less finished here now. I'm going to show you what I've done a little bit later, and I'm going to show you why I've done it. But first, before all that, we need to have a brief understanding of the science behind it. So we'll have a look at that now. Okay, so let's start off with something that we all know. It's really basic. Why is it that when my neighbour makes a noise or the TV's on, I can hear it so easily, and vice versa? Well, in this instance, I live in a terraced house that's about 120 years old, and the only thing that's partitioning my house to next door is a solid brick wall that's only 9 inches thick, just one brick thick. So somebody's next door makes a noise, that noise travels through the air, hits this solid wall, and it can just vibrate straight through, straight out the other side, and I can hear it on this side. Now you might live in a much newer house, you could even live in a new build, which is a semi-detached house, and you can still hear your neighbours. Well, on your wall, if that's the case, you've got your neighbours here, and the newer type of property will have a cavity wall between the two. So you've got this break. So the theory is that someone makes a noise, it hits this wall, goes through this wall, and then it stops here. This is a sound break, if you like, and the sound can't go through it. The problem is that these two walls are tied in with lots and lots of wall ties, and they bridge the gap. Now, if the bricklayers haven't been particularly clean with keeping the cavities clean, then there might be compo or mortar, depending on what part of the country you're at, on these wall ties that just make these bridges a lot bigger and a lot more solid. So the sound can just go into the wall, across the bridge, so to speak, through this wall, and then you can hear it on this side. It all depends as well what sort of insulation has been used. If there's solid insulation in here, again, that's just it's rendering this break fairly useless. So the sound can just go straight the way through it. So how do we counteract that? Well, we need to make a break where the sound can't get through, and we need to maintain it. There's lots of things on the market which help with this sort of thing and create that break. If you live in a new build flat, for argument's sake, you will see, if you look in your ceiling space, not that I suggest that you do, but what should be there is, if that's the floor, second floor, and someone stood there, and then you've got the joists that form the structure of the floor, like so. You will have these metal rails, I forget what they're called, I'll put a picture of one up now, on the bottom.
Now a bigger drawing of this would be something like that. Now what happens is, the idea is that you've got your joist here. This rail gets attached to the bottom with a screw into the joist to secure it, and then when the plasterboard goes on the bottom to form the ceiling of the first floor, for argument's sake, that plasterboard then, which is here, gets secured into that rail only. So you'll have a plasterboard screw into that rail, and you've got this break now here that the sound can't get through, or at least it finds it more difficult. So if he or she is stamping up here, the sound goes through the floor, through the joist, hits that break, and then it doesn't go through to the ceiling, which makes your life a lot easier or a lot quieter. And that obviously works two ways. They can't hear you either. But what's happened sometimes in the past is that these have been fitted incorrectly, and the plasterboard screw goes straight through the plasterboard, straight through this rail and into the joist. Well, that renders that now completely useless, because if he or she is stamping, the sound can go straight through that screw, straight into that plasterboard, and then you can hear it down there. Which is why when we do what we're going to do upstairs, I'm going to use minimal fixings to help with this issue here. So what I'm going to do upstairs, we've got a 9-inch wall here. That's next door. I'm going to attach a batten to the wall using as least amount of fixings as I can. The longest lengths I've got is 2 meters, and I'm only going to use 3 fixings on those. Anything less than that, I'm going to only use 2, and I'm going to use a concrete screw or a concrete fixing that's going to go straight through into the wall. Now what I'm going to do behind these fixings, what I'm going to fit, is 2 penny washers and a plate washer. The theory then is that it's going to create this cavity. It's going to stand the timber off the wall, which means I'm maintaining this break all the way through. Yes, I've got the fixings through, but I'm only going to use as least amount as possible to help reduce the noise that can come through. And then on top of this timber, I'm going to apply a sticky acoustic foam, which I'll show you later. The idea is then, when the plasterboard gets attached onto that with the fixings like so, next door makes a noise, it hits the wall, it goes through the wall, and then it'll hit this break. There won't be enough fixings for it to go through, and if it does go through where the fixings are, I've got this extra buffer here which will dampen the sound down, thus making my life a little bit quieter. But again, it works both ways. So if I've got the TV on too loud, I'm playing music too loud, the sound can't go through that way either, making next door's life a little bit quieter, and also everybody's life that little bit nicer. That's the theory behind it. Now we'll go back upstairs and I'll show you exactly what it looks like in reality.
Okay, this is what I've done. I'll try and explain it the best that I can. All I've done initially is just batten the wall out. This has been done many times. There's nothing new or inventive about this. You'll do this for many reasons. If you wanted to pack out the wall for any reason, if you wanted to create space for insulation, if you wanted to create space that you can run cables or hot and cold feeds for bathrooms, that sort of thing, or in kitchens, this is what you'd do. But in those instances, if you didn't have any sound concerns or considerations, then you'd put as many fixings in these as possible and get them as tight to the wall as possible. Obviously, to make it as strong as possible. But we don't want that as such. We want it to be strong, but we don't want to put all these fixings and get that timber tight to the wall, because all we're doing then is making that 9-inch thick wall thicker, and the sound's just going to keep going straight through it, and you're not really going to do anything in terms of cutting the noise down. So what I've done behind each fixing is put 2 penny washers and a plate washer behind every single one. And what that's done is create a definitive gap behind the timbers. It's stood the timbers off the wall all the way down, and you can see that better if I can get down. From down there, you see that gap? And that's behind every single one. And the theory is then that has acted now as a sound break, basically. The sound can travel through these bricks, but it can't travel through that timber because it isn't touching the wall. That's the important bit. It's simple, really, isn't it? These fixings are just keeping it off the wall. Now, the reason why I've used minimal fixings, basically not enough, what you'd normally use, is because if I put loads of fixings in, then that's just more points where the sound can come through. So I've used as least amount as possible. In these long ones, which are 2 meters long, there's only 3 fixings in each one, and the rest have got 2. In fact, the very end ones, I've only got 1 in them. So, as I say, it's the minimal fixings, which means there's minimal points that the sound can travel through. Now, the downside to that is there's a bit of movement in the timber. And you can see that some have taken better than others. That one's pretty solid, but you can move most of them. So my theory is to firm them up if I was worried about it. Not that I am really, to be honest. I think it's strong enough. But what I could do, in fact what I might do, is foam this gap all the way down just to give it a bit more structure, make it a bit more solid. Now the foam, no matter how hard it will go, will always remain spongy. This is some of the stuff I put down a couple of days ago to cover these gaps. And as you can see, it never goes proper solid. So that will remain spongy and act as a sound dampener, if you like. That's my theory. So I might do that, I might not, I'm not too sure yet. But what I will do is now go over these studs with this stuff, which I bought from our beloved Amazon. It's a proper acoustic tape, so it says, but all it is a sticky back foam. There doesn't seem to be anything special about this foam at all. It's exactly the same sort of stuff that you'd use or see on like draft excluders, that sort of thing, or gaskets around windows, something like that. It's nothing too scientific by the sound of it. But what I'm going to do is peel that off and stick that down every single stud. So then when the plasterboard goes on top of that, again, that's acting as a dampener, a sound dampener to come through. And then that is basically it. And that's all I'm going to do. So I'll show you what it's like to stick this stuff on, how easy it is, and then we'll go from there. So as you've seen, that didn't take long at all. That took me about 10 minutes in real time. Very sticky stuff, so I'm confident that can stay on there now until it's on to plasterboarding, which won't be just yet. Fully aware that I've got to brick these in as well. Brick these holes up, else I'm wasting my time completely. So what I can do now between these is sound insulate between the timbers as well, which is obviously going to help. So it's all there now. So I'm quite happy with that. As I say, I think the science is there, the theory is there, so that should make a big difference. It's just whether or not now it's worth doing it for the rest of the house. The entire party wall between our house and next door's. we shall see. We'll go over the costings now and you can tell me what you think. This is everything that I bought, apart from the plate washers, which I ran out of and then threw the bag away before I had a chance to show you. But I will read it out to you. It's on the receipt. They were M10s, 50 by 50 mil, and they came in at £7.28 plus VAT for a bag of 30. So you don't get many. They are quite expensive for what they are. These washers here, which came in a box of, or a bag, I should say, of 160. Concrete fixings and the foam, which I may or may not use in this instance. I will use it, so it's not a waste of money. I'll definitely use it for something. Came in at £39 and 95p, so 40 quid, all but 5 pence, and that is from ECA Toolfast. I suggest you find your local one of them. They are very, very good. Great people, great shops, loads of stock, which is a rarity these days. So yeah, I recommend them fully. This I will put on your screen now. There's 2 rolls of this. I've used all but maybe a metre of a roll on there. And there's this one. I'll put it on the screen now. That's from Amazon, as you can see. It's the cheapest I could find. You can go on, what would you call them? Sound insulating websites, for argument's sake, and buy some. You can really spend the money on it, but I didn't think for a domestic thing. We're not trying to build a record studio here or something, so I'm not going to turn it into a drum school. That's not the reason. It's just for conversation and tellies, basically, that they can't hear from next door. So I didn't see the point in spending the money. Plus, I haven't got the money, so there you go. This is supposed to be on the budget. So that came in at that much. The timbers, the 6 lengths here at 3.6. I've got a couple of offcuts, nothing to write home about. And that was £62, I believe. So tossing it all up comes in at this much. What do you reckon? Is it worth it? This will probably take 2 bags of plasterboard adhesive. If I was just to dot and dab it, I'll probably get change out of 20 quid for that, maybe just over 20, depending on where you get it from, what part of the country you're in. So it is a lot more expensive than dotting and dabbing, but for sound issues, for sound problems that you're trying to get over, dotting and dabbing won't do anything. You can use a soundboard, yes, which will help, but I've used it in the past and the customer hasn't been particularly enamoured by it because I didn't do anything like this. I didn't look into it enough. It is a denser plasterboard, so the sound will struggle to get through it as well as normal plasterboard. But without what we've done here, you're really not optimising what it can do with the gaps and the buffers, for argument's sake, for want of a better expression. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know whether I've done it right. Do you think the theory's there? Let me know if you think it's a complete waste of money, if it's worth it. And but hopefully you found it useful. If you have got this sort of issue, you are going through these kinds of works at home, you do live in a terraced house or especially a new build semi-detached house, you might be having these issues. Providing that you can afford to lose the space from the rooms, here we can. So it sort of works for us. It might not for you, but you can use thinner timber, you can use lath, which is expensive stuff, but it's cheaper than this stuff. You'll get more for your money, and it's half the width or thickness, I should say. Problem is then it is going to pull into your wall. This wall's great, and I've used the same packers, I should say, behind each one. There's 2. What's going undone there? Look, maybe that's a sign of things to come. There's 2 penny washers and 1 plate washer behind each one. I haven't packed it out to get it level with each other, to get it straight, because the wall is good. For 120 years old, for a loft that was never meant to be seen, I've got to be happy at that. It was probably thrown up as well by the brickies, but this is how good they were back in the day. I can't know. So that's that. Yeah, let me know if you find it useful. And yeah, see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.